Thank you very much for coming. Look, before I say anything else, I just wanted to show you this. And the reason we're all here is because AI has been all over the news. For the last 2 years, it's been everywhere. And this is why we're all interested. Different organizations have been looking at it from different perspectives. So you have BBC worried about hundreds of millions of jobs being destroyed. RICS is looking at the revolution in the real estate industry. You have JLL developing JLL GPT very early on, and then global accounting firms looking at sort of the impact of this on the industry. A lot of this is hype, I'm not going to lie, because we know that AI has been around for a very long time. My wife, whom I will introduce in a minute, tells me that the math for this has been developed in the 50s. So it's hardly a new concept. There are very good reasons why we are now so excited about this, but AI has been around, as a concept, has been around for a very long time. Now, recently, the whole world became super interested in AI, specifically in generative AI. Anything that isn't generative AI has been around for a very long time, and is just a natural trend, like all the other trends that we see, automation, work from home, that is slowly sipping into the economy. What is new and exciting, at least from our perspective, is generative AI. So at my institute, I've put together a team of people looking at generative AI specifically, just because it turns out that there is no one person that could specialize in everything. So the team, well, it has me on it, whether that's a good thing or not. But then there is Thomas Wiegelmann, who has a PhD, he's Harvard educated, and he's also a managing director at Schroders. So he's the person that is helping us understand the professional perspective. And he's an honorary professor at my institute as well, so he understands both sides, the profession and academia. And there is my wife, who's an AI engineer, a physicist by training, and also an academic at UCL. And she's been telling me to get interested in AI for a while, and I bitterly regret ignoring her for far too long until I finally broke and started looking into this technology that is absolutely fascinating. At the moment, if I could give you one message today, I really wish I could show you just how much of a huge advantage my students who graduated this year have over students who graduated last year, just because of the fact that they can use AI. The stuff that they can do is just so much better purely because of AI. So today I'd like to make 2 points, and hopefully this will be interesting to you. The first is that everything else kept constant, a professional using AI is going to be working faster and producing better results than the same professional not using AI, and specifically generative AI, which I will cover later. And the second point I would like to make is this is not the technology of the future. This is everything I'm going to show you today is what's happening now already. And the only thing stopping us from using this every day, the same way we use our phones or the same way we use the internet, is the habit and the skill. The use cases I'm going to show you today are something we already see in the industry. It's stuff that we already see companies deploy. So why are we suddenly so excited about generative AI, a concept that has been around for a while? We had the first generative models we've had in the 60s, 70s, but it's only very recently that we realized that we have the 3 things you need in order to create very powerful and capable models. 1 is the math. We've had it since the 50s. 2, computing power. We developed enough computing power maybe in the late 2010s, and now we coupled data to it. And these 3 things are the 3 elements you need in order to create very powerful AI models. And we've created something called generative AI, which is AI capable of creating something genuinely new. Now, of course, we could have a very philosophical debate about what genuinely new means, but if good artists borrow and great artists steal, then AI is definitely a great artist, right? It takes the patterns that it observes in absolutely massive amounts of data. We're talking the universe of everything that is on the internet, observes the patterns, and then is able to use those patterns to recreate what it has seen in the data in a different context. And in this way, it's generative, it's creating something that in a way is genuinely new. But we've had recent breakthroughs in this technology that, in my opinion, allow us to think about this in a completely new way. First is we can now talk to it using English. And it doesn't actually have to be English. It can be any Western language. You can use other types of models for non-Western languages, but the point is you no longer have to code in order to communicate with a machine, which is incredibly useful for people who, for one reason or another, don't want to learn how to code. In fact, it turns out AI is better at coding than most humans. And all you need to do is you just need to say what you want the computer to do. It is now also publicly available, so you don't have to be an academic or a tech person in order to have access to it because it's public. The quality of the output is much higher just because we are now able to access more computing power and apply it to more data, and it just generates really, really good results. And it now has access to the internet, which is both exciting and scary at the same time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you an overview of use cases that we have seen in the industry. Part of what the task force for AI does at my institute is we go to companies and speak to them about what do they actually do with AI, how do they actually use it. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the use cases that we see. Then I'm going to show you some hopefully useful party tricks using ChatGPT related to something that you use on a regular basis that will hopefully stimulate your imagination and show you exactly how useful the technology is. So the first already relatively well-established use case is drafting first documents of texts. Next time you speak to your solicitors or your law firm, ask them who generated the first draft of the document they put in front of you. Many large companies already have internally developed large language models that are very, very good. And of course, they would be completely insane to put the first draft in front of you. But the point that I'm making is the first draft is generated using AI, and then somebody more senior looks it over, and then you get the final draft. The time and the cost of development of that document is now much, much shorter. And of course, AI is very good at writing. It can write emails. It writes a lot of my emails. And before you get too excited, it doesn't mean that I suddenly stop spending 4 hours every day writing emails. It just means that within those 4 hours, I write more of them. Annoyingly, it really feels like I also get more back, so it never ends. But the time of writing emails is just more efficient. So it summarizes documents, it translates them. If you're not using AI to work with text, you should start. It's very, very good at it. Then we have more emerging applications, and the first one I have to mention is going to be data analytics. Skills that took me months to develop when I was a PhD student now take my PhD students days. Incredibly frustrating, but also so inspiring. The fact that they no longer have to spend months developing those skills, they can just move on, is really inspiring, but also really frustrating because they should go through the same hard process I had to go through. But unfortunately, they now have shortcuts. It's also very good for unstructured data analysis. So for example, I have spoken to a company recently that is using AI to sift through a very large database of land plots that are available for sale and to shortlist those land plots for a human analyst to analyze. A human analyst wouldn't be able to look at 500,000 land plots, but they can look at 500 and sort of shortlist the ones that they want to look at. The second part of use cases, or the developing use cases, I have seen companies using AI for matching buyers and sellers. And of course, it will never have the type of attention and the type of understanding you can offer your clients. But what they will have is they will have the broad overview of all the assets that are possibly available on the market and what other clients are looking for. And the matching that AI can do is always going to be more efficient than the matching a human can do. I have seen companies use it for customer service, especially for tenant communication. And of course, there definitely is the wrong way to do this. And you can end up in a situation where the AI is communicating false messages or giving incorrect information to the tenant. If you do it incorrectly, if you do it well, you save a lot of time and you save a lot of money by just making the process more efficient. There are companies that very effectively deploy AI for customer service, but also increasingly for compliance and for making sure that compliance checks are performed effectively. Then we have design and planning, and I probably won't surprise you if I say that we now have planning authorities using AI to evaluate applications, and people who write those applications using AI to write them. So hopefully, very soon, we will have AI writing planning regulations as well, and then we can all go home and AI will do everything for us. Unfortunately, I don't think that's the case. I think we're a long way away from that, but at least AI is making the process a little more efficient. It's also very good for ESG. What I have seen last week is a Swedish company that is analyzing documentation from a construction site and telling you whether specific technologies of a building are compliant with different building standards. So you no longer have to have the massive spreadsheet that you normally have when you try to get your building certified. You have a lot of this automated, and this is just an example of how AI can analyze the massive amounts of data related to ESG we have in real estate and actually make sense of them and translate them into actionable insights. The list goes on and on and on. I gave you the most interesting cases, but there are also developing applications. You probably have heard of automated valuation models. I'm not a big fan of those, but they do exist, and increasingly they are being applied. There is a school at the Bartlett, which is my faculty of construction management, and there's a group of people looking at applying AI to managing projects, and specifically projects in construction, and it has great results. So it turns out it just makes managers act like more senior managers really, really quickly. We have spoken to banks that use AI to speed up, the debt financing analysis. At the moment, it's mostly related to risk analysis, but we also have seen people optimizing negotiation practices. I spoke to somebody who were hiring for a relatively senior position in the company. They were holding preliminary interviews, interviewing 4 people online. And then they had one question that they designed to be difficult. And it turned out that not only all candidates answered that question extremely well, but all of them answered it the same way. Not word per word, but the content was exactly the same. And then the penny dropped for them that they were all using AI, in that specific case, ChatGPT, to help them get through the interview. And I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. In fact, I think that's actually an advantage because you show that you can use the technology to make yourself better. But they had to evaluate these people differently, knowing that they were using AI in the process. My students definitely use AI in their interviews and job applications. So we now have to learn how to evaluate those applications slightly differently. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, as I promised, I'm going to show you some examples of things that hopefully you can relate to, hopefully you do on a regular basis, but also you'll see that AI can help you with. What you see on the left-hand side on the screen is house prices in London over time, from 2005 until 2003. I'm just going to copy this column of text, this is formatted as text, into ChatGPT and say, make a graph of this data. If everything goes well, this is what I'm going to get back. And at this point, you could say, well, fine, that's mildly impressive. I could do that in Excel just as quickly. That's true, but remember that you already have the skills you need in order to make graphs in Excel. All this needs is just words. I want a graph of this data. But okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask ChatGPT to do something you can't do in Excel, at least not easily, and I'm going to ask for this data to be animated. And then just using my words, I'm just going to get a nice graphic of a plot that changes over time. And if you're thinking that this is hard to do, if you're thinking that this takes time and skill, I'm going to show you how to do this live right now. So this is my ChatGPT console. And all I have done is I just copied this column of text, pasted it into my ChatGPT console, and now it's analyzing the data. Now, this is the paid version of ChatGPT. You now do have access to it for free. You just need to set up an account, but you have a very limited number of queries that you can ask without paying. So the model that you have access to for free is 10 times better as the model you had access to for free a year ago. So if you haven't played with AI for a while, please do. It's definitely worth your time. But anyway, that's the graph. It is actually interactive. So for what it's worth, you can point to different times in this time series and see the actual values. But what we really want to do is we want to see the animation. So again, all like this, I just copied and pasted the prompt, and now it's thinking. It says analyzing over there. What it's actually doing in the background, it's writing Python code. So it understands the structure of the data, it understands what it needs to do, it understands me saying I want the animation, and now it's writing Python code to generate that animation. The advantage of writing the Python code is that I can actually see the Python code that it's using and trace back everything that it did. So if you have concerns about, is it replicable? Is it actually correct? There is a way of verifying this. There is a way to audit exactly what it's doing. So here, I'm just going to download the file. Hey! So it works 90% of the time. Sometimes I need to ask twice, so I'm really glad that I don't have to ask twice today. Okay, let's go back to the presentation, because, fine. I gave you a really simple example of using really simple data, which, as I said, it looks like a party trick, but you can actually now use it if you ever need to make a graph really quickly. The next thing I'm going to show you is not as much of a party trick, because now we're going to make a map. Anybody who has ever made a map on a computer knows just how much of a pain it is. I know how to do this. I know the code. And every single time, it just takes way, way too much time, because something doesn't work, or you have the wrong file, so you mess up the code. It's not easy. But now ChatGPT does my maps for me, and I'm very, very grateful for that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this prompt across into my ChatGPT console, and then I'm going to give ChatGPT a list of points that I want plotted. And the list of points is going to come from Wikipedia. And this is the Wikipedia page for the list of tallest buildings and structures in the world. All I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down all the way to this table, and I'm going to copy across this list. I'm not doing any formatting here. I'm just copying this across. This is actually a relatively difficult test to pass for AI, because you can see that when I copy this across, there are links, there are things in brackets, there are flags, there are oddly formatted numbers, and I actually didn't copy the column headers, and also the coordinates are formatted in a way that is easy for a human to read, but not necessarily for a machine. So if I was doing this manually, I'd have to find a way to convert the coordinates into something more useful for a machine. Whereas ChatGPT, while I was speaking, converted everything into something it is able to understand and produced this map for me. And you can click on it. It tells you exactly what structure this is. This is the KVLY TV mast. You can zoom in, and the base map has all the infrastructure, all the roads, all the rivers, and you can zoom in and out. Look, this is real estate. So I'm sure we've all been in a meeting where we would be sitting around the table looking at a list of buildings, and somebody would say, well, hang on a minute, I wonder what this looks like on the map. Well, now you can generate this map while you're in the meeting talking. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to tell you about is the ability of AI to generate something beyond the technical stuff. Because it turns out that it actually is really good at helping senior people with things like strategy. Turns out that if you give AI a case study that you usually give to top MBA students in top universities around the world, AI will solve that case study and give you an answer in 30 minutes that is better than a team of MBA students would produce in 5 days. And this is not me saying this, it's top strategy professors judging the quality of the work submitted. So turns out that whatever strategy is, however you judge strategy, AI is really good at replicating that type of work. And as an example of this, I'm going to show you an analysis of this document. You're probably familiar with it. It's from PwC and ULI. It comes out in December. This is real estate. Nobody has the time in December to read an 80-page document. And everybody is expected to suddenly know these things as soon as the report comes out. So if you're heading into a meeting and you want to know whether the report has something that you need to use in the meeting, you can ask AI. You can tell that I was in Denmark on Monday, where I was giving a similar presentation, and I was presenting to people who were Danish investors interested in investing in Europe. And this is the prompt that I recommended that they would use. Very simply, you give the AI a role, you tell it what you want it to do, and then you say exactly what you want to see as an outcome. And then the next thing you can do is you can ask the AI to give you specific recommendations. And it actually is able to generate the insights from the report, then read those insights and generate recommendations based on that. And I'm going to show you how to do this right now, but if you want to have the time to read the recommendations that it actually generates, then I do recommend that you try this at home. As I said, it is free at the moment, so you can replicate everything I'm doing right now. And all you need to do is just use the same prompt and the same files. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for a summary in the form of a table specific to a Danish investor. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to read the document and then it's going to generate the content. It is no longer using Python, so there is no longer an opportunity for us to audit all the steps that it's following and to understand exactly what it's doing. It is theoretically possible, but the amount of time we would need in order to trace back everything that it's doing would be measured in years rather than in minutes. So it is theoretically possible. In practice, it's just far too much time. So what it's generated here is it's generated a list of key insights on the left-hand side, then it's generated some details on the right-hand side, and if you click on any of the links, it should give you a link to the specific part of the report. It's not giving you the link to the specific part of the report. And, oh no, okay, so it is actually showing you the report. Excellent. Sure. You don't. So. Okay, if you read the document, how do you know that you didn't miss an absolutely key argument? And No, sure, but now you have the choice. You read the 80-page long document yourself, and then you take the risk that you missed it, or you spend 5 minutes with playing with AI, and then you take the risk that it missed it. Now, there are ways of minimizing the risk, so there are actually techniques that will reduce the risk to a level that is lower than if you were reading the document yourself. You can never eliminate the risk, but there are ways of making sure that it is actually better for you to get AI to do it than to do it yourself. But you never have the guarantee. The way these models are designed is based on probability. So there's always going to be a probabilistic chance that something's wrong, something has been missed, or something doesn't exist in the document, right? So I hope that helps, but it's a very good question and it's a fair point. It's not a bulletproof solution. It has costs and benefits, and what I'm showing you today are mostly the benefits, not the costs. And I appreciate that because I'm trying to get you excited about the technology rather than give you a full overview of how the technology works. But yeah, thank you for that question. So the next thing it does, it generates recommendations that are perfectly sound. As I said, I was in Denmark on Monday, tested this on actual Danish investors, and they told me, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's not terribly insightful. Usually what I find is that in a list of 5 points, there would be 4 that you would definitely come up with yourself, but it would take you a little bit of time. And then there's 1 point that probably stimulates your thinking. And for that 1 point, I think it's worth using AI for this purpose.
Yeah, just a question. It seems that those points are rather generic. They're not so specific to Denmark.
If that's what you're looking for, then I think, okay, I don't think I have this slide anymore, because the next step, if you don't find it specific enough, the next thing you would do is, I would say, make it more specific to Denmark. Sorry. And that's exactly, and what I'm trying to show you is this is exactly how you communicate, how you use these systems. If you don't find that it's specific enough, then all you need to do is you need to say, hang on, you need to do a better job here. And then it will. And then if you still don't find it specific enough, then you need to be more specific with your instructions. Right? For example, make it more specific to a Danish investor from the perspective of regulations, or from the perspective of financing, or from the perspective of their investment goals. Because usually when AI is not giving you what you want to see, it's usually your fault rather than AI's fault. At least that's what we find in our research on AI. Okay, unfortunately, I'm going to have to skip all the other examples that I wanted to show you. No, I'm going to give you one more before I move on, because we don't have a lot of time left. This one. This comes from my Valuation 101 class. The first time my students are exposed to the idea that you can value a building. And in the past, this would be something that I would use to stimulate a discussion. Do you value a building using the cost or replacement cost approach, or do you value a building using a present value approach? Unfortunately, I can't do that anymore, because now what my students are going to do is they will take this, copy this into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT not only will explain different valuation approaches, but will also give them all the formulas and actually employ those formulas to tell me exactly how much the building is worth in seconds. So that basically kills the debate that I used to have with my students, because there's always a smart person in the room that just enters this into ChatGPT and says, I have the answer. And they're right. And they don't even have to manually enter this. They can just take a picture of the slide and upload this to ChatGPT, and boom. So it gets better, because now if you want to do sensitivity analysis, all you need to do is say something along the lines of, I want a sensitivity analysis of my assumptions. And yes, those modeling assumptions can be a lot more complex than what I just showed you. I don't necessarily recommend doing your DCFs only using AI, but I do recommend using your risk analysis with the help of AI. Okay, the clock tells me that I have 1 minute left. So the most important thing that I think I can show you is this slide. And this is the work that we have done around the future of work. We spoke to economic historians, to people who study change and disruption, and decided on what is our stance on where the future of work is moving in real estate. And the first thing I need to say is that there's going to be a change in how work is being done. There's going to be a change in the way in which we do work for virtually all professionals, not just in real estate. There's going to be a change in what work is being done. There's going to be a lot more work for people who make decisions, because there's now going to be a lot more input into those decisions. And there's going to be a lot more work for collecting and analyzing data using AI, just because the technology is here. There's going to be a lot less time for analytical work, which I find terrifying. Some of my papers take years to write and publish. There's also going to be a change in who does the work. This is a controversial part of this slide. Very often people disagree, but we have seen this in the past, that when a new technology comes out, there's going to be less work for, more work for seniors and more work for juniors, less work for middle layer professionals. This is what we've seen with spreadsheets. This is what we've seen with steam engines. This is what we've seen with switchboards. And then finally, there's going to be a change in who captures value. There is going to be more work for AI experts. And by this, I don't just mean technical experts like my wife, but also people who do understand the intersection of the technology with the specific sector that they are in. So if you want to capture some of the value of this trend, then understand the technology. You already understand the industry, but try to learn about how the technology works. There is definitely value in that. People who are able to make decisions using AI will definitely benefit from this quite significantly. Okay, so the last point, before I finish, the last point I want to make is there is actually quite a large number of studies that now shows in what way you can deploy AI to be more efficient. This is a study from the Boston Consulting Group and Harvard University that shows that Boston Consulting Group consultants were able to complete tasks 25% faster and 40% better if they were able to access AI. Now, of course, these are management consultants, so you could argue that they don't produce any value in the first place, but whatever value they do produce, the study shows that they can do it much faster. And this study is relatively old. I think I presented this in September already, but since then we've had study after study after study after study that shows similar results. Unfortunately, don't have time to go through each of these right now. If you do want to know more, either chat to me or take a picture of this and look it up. Super interesting. And the point is, research shows that there is a lot of value in using AI already. Without deploying complicated technologies, without developing any expensive applications, just using AI chatbots that are available out there already in the right way will give you a huge benefit. If you are interested in seeing more of those use cases or party tricks that I've just showed you, please go to our website. We have a list. There's also training available on that website if you're interested. But the point that I'm trying to make is you should really play with this. It's phenomenally interesting, phenomenally useful, and if you don't use it now, you should. Eventually, it will be as ubiquitous as cell phones or internet, because it's going to change the way we work the same way those technologies did. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm more than happy to answer questions, and I hope you're just as excited about this as I am, although I am also a little terrified. Thank you very much.